White Chicks. It turned 20 last year, 20 years, and
Yeah, yeah.
which is nuts because comedy from then to now has changed so much. But that movie, it still holds up great, and it's like a timeless piece of art. I don't know. To me, it's a movie I can rewatch over and over. But what was that experience like for you? And well, I guess what stands out to you looking back over 20 years now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I can't believe that it's over 20 years. That kind of blows my mind. But um, um, it was one of my first projects that I ever did. It was when I really first started. I'd been acting for a few years, but I mean, it was one of my, first big movies that I had done. And I mean, I remember being incredibly nervous and because I grew up watching the Wayans brothers and In Living Color, was had just been one, of the most popular comedy sketch shows, and I was just such a big fan. And so when I got cast, um, I met Keenan and auditioned for them and for the brothers, um, Marlon and Sean, and um, it was such a good experience because they were great, and then all the cast that they brought in, a lot of the people that they work with multiple times, so everybody kind of knew each other. They were all friends, and they did something really unique, which I loved, which they didn't always know exactly in a scene what would play. They always wanted to leave something open if they found a joke, or if they found something that worked, or if someone had an idea that they'd explore that. So they would keep all of us really available on set all the time. So we would all be around even if we weren't necessarily filming that day. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't, but everybody just got to know each other really well, and we would, rehearse and try and find jokes that on the day. And so it was just a really fun experience working with pros at that age, when I just started out. And it just kind of blows my mind that people are still watching. I mean, it was so offbeat for the time too.
It
Like,
was. Yeah, it was.
and I remember going to when we went to the premiere, and I remember I was like sitting like, you know, Snoop was like right in front of me, just off to the side, and he was like laughing through the whole show, and just being like, it felt surreal to me in a way, because like now I was just a kid and growing up in Halifax, and this was like the first thing that I'd ever really done, and then last year I was doing press in London, and I still keep getting recognized from White Chicks 20 plus years later in Europe, and I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny. It's a show that keeps going.
You know what it is too, John? I think a part of it why you get recognized is because you don't age at all. Like you look the same age as you did 20 years ago. I don't know what you do, man, but like that, I mean, like serious. It's like you look the exact same. I think just 'cause you got a little bit of a beard now. That's it.
Yeah.
Besides that,
Well,
you look the same.
that's kind of you to say, brother. I got a few more grays in here. I got a few more grays
No,
than I did back then, but
it's okay. Yeah, the grays, it makes you look sophisticated. That's why I always say the
that's
gray.
right.
What's also really cool. There was a John Hurd that was in the film, which people know him just for Home Alone, but what people don't know, because he was in smaller roles for these. But for example, The Sopranos, he was in
Mhm.
Entourage.
He also was in when I was a kid, there was a really famous movie called Beaches with Barbara Streisand and Bette Midler,
I-
and I think he played.
Is it a show?
Yeah, it was. I believe maybe it was a musical first, and then it was a feature.
Okay.
But I think he was. I think that was one of his first projects that he was in. But I mean, he's been in a ton of stuff. Uh, and he was hilarious. I mean, he was, there was so many great, you know, uh, cast in that show. I mean, Terry Crews, that was one of his first things, and he's maybe one of the funniest humans on the planet.
That was the yeah
And
his scenes yeah that the on the dance floor especially when he's with the whistles that's to
yeah,
me like the most iconic scene.
well, that was actually one of the first things that we shot. That whole sequence was one of the was very early on in the process. That was probably within the first week or two of filming, and nobody really knew what he was going to do because he hadn't really filmed much yet at that point. I think we had shot a little bit on the beach, but he came out, and so everybody from set went to go watch because they were really curious as what he was going to do, and they just filmed for like 20 minutes, a whole bunch of different angles just of him going, and he just kept going, and everybody was watching it, everybody was cheering. Like the one thing that you know one thing you don't see is the entire crew and cast standing behind, like cheering and laughing. And um I mean, he was a scene stealer, even with us watching on set. It was yeah, it was fun. And just a great guy too. His family would come to set a lot, and he'd tell us stories. He was an NFL linebacker, and he used to tell us, a lot of the stories from, when he was playing. And he knocked himself out once hitting somebody.
Oh
And
my.
I think that was one of the reasons he decided he wanted to be that he was going to become an actor. It was probably a little bit more longevity.
I was gonna say yeah right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. He's because there's a scene in the movie where he's with it's Marlon Wayans in the car where he's singing the song. He's like, like, how'd you know? I love this song. It's 1,000 miles, right? And
Yeah.
then what that reminds me of, have you seen the movie Click with Adam Sandler? Have you seen that movie?
A long time. I think maybe when it came out, but it's been a while.
Yeah, there's a scene that Terry Crews is in as well, and he's not singing that song, but he's singing in a car. He's singing
Yeah.
um working I forgot the exact title. I think it's Everybody's Working for the Weekend by Loverboy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he's in the car. He's like, everyone's watching, and it's like he's just singing. And it reminds me of White Chicks.
He's got that energy. He's got that energy in person too. It really, you know, I hadn't seen him for several years, and then we bumped into each other, I think, on Warner Brothers studio. Like this was years ago, but like I heard him shout to me like out across the across the lot. And he's just gregarious and uh,
Yeah,
lovely person, really funny, really engaging, really smart. But yeah, I mean, I think he hadn't retired from the NFL much before White Chicks. So I think, he was that was near the beginning of his career as well. And, he's obviously had incredible success. And he's still, speaking of somebody who doesn't age, he is
yeah,
still like that. He's like
in great shape too.
superhuman.
He's jacked, and it's yeah. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also too because comedy has changed a lot throughout the years, and I'm always asking myself this. I always talk about my friends as well. Like, could they make a White Chicks today? Do you think they could? Or like I don't know. I always think about it. Like it's I feel like if it's done properly, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how people would take it too. I don't know. I want to get your thoughts on it.
If anyone could, it would be the Wayans brothers.
Yeah.
And I think there's a love of the movie, of the original movie, that I say this because there's always been some discussion of a White Chicks too.
Hmm.
Um, and whether or not that is actually something on the radar, or if it's something that, people are just hopeful about. But uh, yeah, I mean, I think it takes, like, I don't think it could have been made back then if it hadn't been done by the Wayans brothers. Like, there's just so much goodwill towards their work, and it's fun. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's I think because it was sort of just fun and silly back then, it kind of just remains that way. And it's,
Hmm.
I don't know. I hope so. I hope that I, I'd love to see, I'd love to see you know, them either revisit it or just see more of their movies just in general.